When I was recommended Dandadan, I went in without any idea what the show is about. Now that I've watched both seasons and read through all the manga, and after much contemplation, I'm still clueless. Dandadan is an inelegant amalgam of random ideas, culminating in bombastic chaos. The premise is that a few teenagers encounter and fight aliens and demons using their superpowers. The main characters, Ken and Momo, search for Ken's balls because an old lady dropped them. I'm not being facetious, that's literally what happens. This is a screwball plot, and thankfully it's the fun kind. It's like if Grand Blue and Scooby-Doo had a foursome with JoJo's Bizarre Adventure and regular show. Dandadan is the resulting orgy. The JoJo influence is especially apparent, with everyone having unique powers facing off against episodic adversaries. Momo bears this influence the most, being the strategist in the main group who conjures up some plan to outwit the bad guy. This is thankfully restricted to her for the most part. I find it tiresome when every character in a show is playing mind games. It also allows the rest of them to fill in different roles, such as Ken being a more straightforward powerhouse, Ira being the speedy one, Gigi being a wild card, and Kinta. The main squad's dynamic is where the Grand Blue part of the analogy comes in. They bicker, they banter, they wind up naked, yet without one drop of alcohol. Insane. Like watching Dandadan sober. Regular show comes to mind when a normal day gets interrupted by some supernatural monstrosity, and Scooby-Doo, come on. They have a talking animal. The cast is high on crack. Gigi alone guzzles half a warehouse of placebos an hour. Ken's power is taking his Ritalin prescription. Ira, especially at the beginning, is blitzed on what the Japanese refer to as chunibyo. In English, this translates to retardism, which really is worse than any drug addiction. The supporting cast is no less coked out. The mannequin is powered by lust. Momo's two buddies are likable goofballs. Gigi's mom is Baby Driver from the 2017 film Baby Driver. The school nurse has one scene in the show and they made her a dominatrix. That's extra. Mr. Peeny Weenie is the best character. In all seriousness, though, Dandadan borders on excessive with how unserious all the characters are. Seiko is the closest we have to an anchor in the cast, being the most grounded and serious one. But even she's on nicotine. She's not immune to getting swept up in the madness of this anime. Supporting characters like Manjiro help, but he's not part of the main group. This show is dangerously close to being too goofy. By the time someone's life is actually, in danger, I'm not worried. Mainly because I don't like her, granted. I'm not saying we need someone to get molested and killed by aliens. But if it were to happen, please let it be Kinta. All else aside, you can't call Dandadan a snooze fest. It's not Shield Hero. We're never more than 5 minutes away from gesticulation, a shouting match, or someone getting their shit rocked. This is enhanced by the animation, but what stuck out to me were these zoom-ins that occasionally pop up, retaining the pixelation of the image without upscaling it. They have this amateurish charm that spoke to me. I'm reminded a lot of those old Garry's Mod videos people used to make, back before Garry's Mod was associated with... Anyway. However, not all of Dandadan is to my particular tastes. They did not forget to throw in one of those crappy tearjerker backstories I can't stand. For a dying bad guy, no less. Very unusual decision. Of all people to copy homework from, why Koyoharu? But I did cry alright, because it dragged on for 8 minutes. And I'm brave enough to say Dandadan is not high art. If you go in expecting sophistication and underlying thematic bite, you're gonna be disappointed. You won't get to feel smarter than other people for liking this show. It's not deep, but that's not to say I didn't try digging. As far as a central idea goes, the best I can dream up is the bond a disparate collection of people form over mutual hardship. My source is the dinner table at Momo's house. Every time a monster is defeated, every time they come back to relax, more spots at the table are occupied. Beyond that, Dandadan does occasionally reference Japanese mythology and extraterrestrial conspiracy, but only superficially. I didn't walk away any more knowledgeable about yokai or aliens, and while I'm not convinced Dandadan was meant to be a celebration of these things, it very well had that potential. I couldn't tell you much about Turbo Granny's real-life analog, but I can accurately describe a Zashiki Watashi or a Tsukumogami based on a handful of chapters from Toho manga. It's possible I only paid attention to them because all the yokai in that series are cute girls. Who the hell am I kidding? That's exactly why. That said, the aliens and yokai are nothing if not memorable. They're all as drugged up as the protagonists, and the way they fit into the story isn't always straightforward. While there are some one-off enemies, many of them are recurring characters, all with unique, well, let's just say motivations. A handful of times, enemies even join forces with the protagonists against a bigger threat. This level of unpredictability does wonders to keep things interesting. Tragically, though, Dandadan dips its toes into the rom-com genre, and while I don't have a problem with that in and of itself, the teenage drama doesn't do this show any favors, because unlike everything else, it is predictable. I like Ken and Momo's chemistry, but then he and Ira trip over each other and wind up in a fuck position, only for Momo to spot them at the worst possible moment. This setup is too obvious for anyone who isn't a total newcomer to anime. This wouldn't irritate me so much if it didn't cause issues with the later scene. Ken and Momo stop fleeing from an attacking alien to have a slow and relaxed heart-to-heart about their misunderstanding, all while Ira is drowning. They leave her unconscious underwater for over 2 minutes because sorting out their feelings is more important. Worse still, Dandadan also wades through degenerate waters. As I said earlier, these kids end up naked a lot. I personally have a strong stomach, but I wouldn't blame anyone for dropping Dandadan when this is the first episode. These scenes aren't strictly fan service, but they happen often enough to make me uncomfortable. I'm not 14 anymore. I can do without seeing adolescent women stripped to their skivvies. I'm disappointed that Seiko didn't get the same treatment. The guys do, though, which I'm still not happy about. There are curtains right behind you, dude. You could fashion yourself a toga. I'm not looping this shot, it really does last this long. What I dislike most in terms of rom-com antics is Ira's implementation. She is the waifu bait, the good-looking popular girl that loves the loser main character because he's a nice guy. This is the apex of Dandadan's wish fulfillment. I thought this was a sort of sci-fi, not fantasy. And while we're on her, Ira's voice does not match her character. It's an insufferable 2 semitones too high. A disgustingly squeaky delivery for a character who's clearly not a little kid. I thought this might be an issue with the dub casting, but it's the same in Japanese as well. You could argue she's doing it on purpose to seem more cutesy and innocent, pointing out scenes where her voice is deeper, such as when she's using her power or clashing with Momo. I'd argue shut up with all that perfectly sound logic. She sounds like crap. And Kinta's voice is even worse, though his Japanese dub sounds just fine. Actually, characters break into song a lot, which is jarring when American voice actors try to replicate Japanese lyrics. It doesn't work well. Though to be fair, I'm not sure how you could adapt this. Otherwise, the dub performances are exceptional. Emphasis on performances. I'm going to find whatever intern at Bang Zoom Studios wrote Gigi saying, "D's nuts," and bang him to death with a Japanese to English dictionary. I should mention this is strictly a problem with localizers and not the anime itself. I went back to watch the sub, and even with my broken Japanese, I can tell that's not what he said. Not even fucking close. It's not just old memes either. Characters constantly use this modern lingo, words like sus or AF. This contemporary garbage has a short shelf life. Imagine if an early 2010s anime had characters say swag or epic bacon. That should give you a good idea of how awful this dub will sound in 5 years. They're not future-proofing their work, and their translations aren't even an accurate reflection of the original dialogue. I hate to give credence to the anti-dub crowd, but perhaps Little Boy should have been dropped on Los Angeles instead. Well, I say all that, but truthfully, some of the localization does work. Dandadan includes several references to external media. Pretty on-the-nose references at that. Ken is named after Ken Takakura, a character I'm not familiar with. I haven't seen any of his anime. Gigi turns into a demon when splashed with cold water, and back to himself with hot water. In case you couldn't tell it's a nod to Ranma 1/2, he starts singing its opening theme. One of the songs in the soundtrack has the air horn sound effect. Yes, the one you're thinking of. And I hate to admit, it fits. The visual K-band that helps with exorcising the air horn from Gigi's theme song is an unsubtle homage to X***'s early years. To such an extent, I could swear the song they play sounds a lot like G***y. I thought I was imagining it till we learned the members' names. That is most on the nose. And with that, I've run out of things I want to talk about. Dandadan is stupid, and also dumb. But it's kind of funny, too. Not an inspired conclusion, I know. So I'd like to end on something more substantial. All that stuff I said about Kinta? I was just kidding. Those were all jokes. Quinta is my favorite character. What is there not to like? He follows a rigid morning routine, is dashingly stylish, with a brilliantly creative mind. He's the glue that holds this show together, despite being introduced in episode 22. He's the smartest character, deducing an enemy's weakness that one time, and effortlessly cool, commanding attention from women. He even has the coveted window seat, the throne of all the greats whom came before. I don't know what the word Don to Don means, but Quinta is its embodiment.